Hello there, everybody. This is Amanda from Team Edgar. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your afternoon to join us. Myself, along with Christina and Tom from the Team Edgar team, are here, and we're really super excited about this webinar. Before I dive in and get started, I just want to make sure that you guys can actually hear and see me right now. So if you're having any troubles, just pop them into the chat. And Christina or Tom will let me know. But otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and get right started. It's so great to see a lot of you already active in the chat, which is really exciting. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the slides on. So today is web creating killer content for Facebook. And I know this is a topic that a lot of people are really super interested in. So probably why a lot of you showed up today, so that is really exciting and awesome. So to just get started, I just want to do a little bit of a brief kind of run through of what we're going to talk about in this webinar so you can kind of have an idea of what to expect. So first of all, we're going to talk about stuff like the reality of Facebook reach. Reach on Facebook is something that, you know, a lot of people are really concerned with, and something that a lot of users freak out about. I know at Team Edgar, you know, it's something that we are concerned with too. So we're going to briefly talk about the reality of Facebook reach. We are going to talk about some reasons why people share things on social media, which is definitely relevant. There's a lot of actually psychology around why people share certain things on social. So we're going to go through a few of the reasons why people share things on Facebook. We are also going to go through some do's and don'ts for Facebook posts, which is really kind of the meat of our webinar. And some of these do's and don'ts are actually going to come right from Facebook, and some are going to come from our team, our social media team here at Edgar. And lastly, and this is going to be a really fun part, we're going to go through some examples of what we consider to be good and bad Facebook posts. And this is actually going to be interactive. So we're going to ask you guys to join us for this part and kind of help us describe why some of these posts are bad or good. And I'll explain a little bit more about that later, but there is an interactive part. And then at the very end, we're going to have just a discussion where we're going to open up the chat and ask some questions, and you guys can ask us some stuff. So definitely stick around till the end if you want to get in on the discussion as well. And also feel free to use the chat throughout the webinar to kind of talk to each other or, you know, whatever. The only thing that I do want to throw out there before we really get into the webinar is we do have to put up a little disclaimer that, of course, you know, all the tips and tricks and stuff that we're going to share with you today, we definitely stand behind them 100%, and we do think that they can help you create better content on Facebook, but we can't guarantee that, you know, your Facebook reach is going to go crazy and be amazing, just because nobody can really guarantee that. So, but just throwing that out there. So speaking of Facebook reach, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the reality of Facebook reach. It's something that obviously pretty much any business or brand using Facebook is keeping track of Facebook reach. But the reality is that the average reach of a Facebook post, it changes so dramatically and drastically. So here are some stats for you just from the last few months. And these are actually all from LogoWise, who every month they do a study of Facebook pages. So they look at like thousands of Facebook pages to determine what the average reach is for a Facebook post on a page. And you can see here that, you know, in March, reach was like 2.6%, and in May, it was over 8%. Now, still, 8% isn't an amazingly huge reach for a Facebook post, but it's way better than 2.6%, right? So this definitely shows you that reach on Facebook, it's unpredictable and it's changing all the time. So even though a lot of us really fixate on reach on Facebook, it's probably something that you don't want to make yourself crazy over, because Facebook is always tweaking its algorithms. It's always changing the sorts of things that it likes or it doesn't like. And sometimes Facebook doesn't tell us what it likes or doesn't like, or, you know, what it wants you to do more of. And you just kind of have to figure it out for yourself. So I wouldn't say that reach doesn't matter, but it changes so frequently that it's something that you shouldn't really obsess over too much. And hopefully what we go through in today's webinar is going to help you realize that there are lots of different things you can try to increase your reach without like just obsessively looking at it all the time. Facebook, it used to be just a really fun thing, and now for businesses, sometimes it's not so fun, but we would like to help you put some of the fun back into it. So having said that, now let's talk about some of the reasons why people share stuff on social and on Facebook especially. It's really interesting. We wrote a blog post about this on LKR social media at the end of last year, and it was based on a study about, well, why people share stuff on social. And it is definitely worth thinking about a little bit more, because like I mentioned, why people share things is actually like a psychological thing. It's not just because of the content you create. It's what people get from that content. So we're going to give you 5 reasons why people share stuff on social, and I want you to keep these in mind throughout the whole webinar. So first of all, people share stuff on Facebook because they think that it delivers valuable and entertaining information to other people. So, I mean, as an example, we've all shared a cute cat post or a photo on our Facebook page because we're just like, oh, or maybe like a funny video or a recent news story that we just want to tell people about. So if it's something that's entertaining or that a person finds valuable for them or their friends or whatever, they're more likely to share it on Facebook. Secondly, people share things to define themselves to other people. A recent example of this would be a lot of people in the U.S. have started sharing a lot of politically related things because we have an election coming up in 2016, and in the U.S. for some reason campaigning starts like a year and a half before the election. But so you see a lot of people already sharing kind of politically related things on Facebook, and that's basically them just kind of sharing their own beliefs through sharing links or pictures or whatever. Another example of this would be a couple of weeks ago, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that gay marriage was legal in all 50 states in the U.S. And on Facebook, there was an app where you could actually make your Facebook profile picture, you could put like a rainbow over it. So as you scrolled through Facebook, it was very, very easy to see like all of your friends who were really excited about this ruling and in support of it. And that was a way for them to just define themselves to other people. Now, that's not necessarily them sharing content on social, but that just kind of gives you an idea of different ways that people can, show themselves and their beliefs and things like that on social media. So that's a really big one, actually. Number 3 is to grow and enrich existing relationships. So, let's say that you're scrolling through Facebook and you see like a link to a story or maybe like a picture or something, and you're like, oh my God, my friend Michelle would love that. And then you share it on Michelle's page. And that's just kind of like, keeping your relationships going on Facebook, because of course now, you can find friends from like your childhood or from college or from like, places that you used to live that you don't anymore. And those are people that you don't necessarily see in real life, but you can actually keep those relationships going through Facebook. And a lot of times people will share things with each other on Facebook to kind of do that. Number 4 is to feel a sense of self-fulfillment, and this kind of relates to a couple other items here, especially like the defining yourself part. Sometimes you just share something on Facebook because it makes you feel good or it like reinforces something that you believe in, and so then you want to share it and just be like, yes, this is me, and I'm going to share it with everybody I know on Facebook. And lastly, a reason that people share content is just to get the word out, whether it's maybe an event that's happening that you want people to know about, or a huge news story that you're really passionate about. People share stuff on Facebook all the time just to kind of like get the word out about whether it's a cause or an event or just like something they want to tell people about. So if we kind of look back at all 5 of these things, you'll see that all of these motivations have one huge thing in common, and that thing is that it's about them and not you. So when you're creating content on Facebook, you want to keep in mind the fact that the reason people share it is not because you put up an amazing post about your new product, or you wrote an awesome blog post and you want people to share it. They're going to share it because they can relate to that blog post, or they use your product and they love it. So keeping that in mind, you know, the key really is to create content that your followers can relate to and recognize themselves in, because they're not going to share something just because you're like, you know, oh, you should read this and share it. They're going to share it because they can connect to it, or, you know, they relate to it in some way. So keeping your audience in mind and like what they would actually want to share is huge when you're creating Facebook content. So now let's jump straight into some do's, and these ones actually come right from Facebook. So these are things you do want to do on Facebook. The first major do is to share links with an image preview. A lot of brands, you know, whether you're sharing blog posts or product links or whatever it is that you're sharing links to on Facebook, a lot of brands do this a lot, and you can have a lot of links on your Facebook page. And it used to be that photos did really, really well on Facebook, and so what people would do would be they would upload a photo, and then they would put the link to their blog post or product or whatever in the description of the photo. Well, now Facebook says, no, don't do that. You know, share your link as a link with an image preview. So this is what it looks like. So basically the elements here, you have first your intro or your caption. Then you actually have the image preview, and that's pulled in from the link. So Facebook pulls that in. You can upload your own as well, but usually if you have like a featured image or whatever, Facebook just pulls it right in. And then underneath you have the link, title, and the description, and that stuff you can also edit in Facebook. So Facebook does make it pretty easy for you to like customize all of this, but this is really how they want you to share links on their platform, and they do tend to reward you by, you know, giving them a little bit more reach than if you did the old photo with a link in the caption option. So if you're not sharing links like this right now on Facebook, try it, because you might find that it works better, because it's actually what Facebook says they want you to do. So secondly, another do from Facebook, and this actually is a more recent one, but they want you to write longer posts for what is being called stickiness. And this, I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? So they basically said that, you know, if somebody's spending a lot of time on one particular story in their newsfeed, like more time than anything else they're looking at, then it's a good sign that that content was relevant to them. Which, I mean, it's kind of common sense, but that does mean that if you're writing longer posts and people are actually spending time reading them, that tells Facebook that, hey, this content was not only really relevant, but it was good enough for somebody to spend all this time reading it, and then therefore it might get shown to more people. So as an example here, so this is what a longer kind of stickiness post would look like. And usually it would, you know, it might have one of those see more links that you have to click on. And it doesn't necessarily have to have a link or a photo or anything. This one does have a link, again, link with image preview. But so when you click on this, it actually takes you to another screen inside Facebook, and then you can read the entire update. And you can see this is a really long one. But basically, if you take the time to click on that see more link, and then you spend time actually reading the update, that basically tells Facebook that, hey, I'm really interested in this, and I'm going to spend the time that it takes to read the whole thing. So maybe experiment with some of these longer posts. I mean, obviously, not everything you post on Facebook is going to necessitate like a super, super long post, but maybe try it out. Try, you know, just posting like once or twice a week a longer post that would take a little bit more time for people to read, and see how it goes, because according to Facebook, it should go a little bit better if people are actually taking time to read it. So next, let's talk about some don'ts, and then we'll go back to some more do's. But these are don'ts. Most of them come right from Facebook. So these are things Facebook does not want you to do. First of all, don't post clickbaity links. And I think we probably all can think of what these links look like, but in general, they're like those like listicle type links with titles that are like, oh my god, you won't believe number 4, or, you know, they're very vague, and they don't actually tell you anything about what the post or the story is about that you're going to click on, but they make you want to click because you're like, oh my god, what happened on number 4? But Facebook doesn't really like those. They, you know, they don't want, because a lot of times what happens is it'll be like a bait and switch, and it won't actually be as interesting as it sounds in the clickbaity title. So Facebook doesn't really like that. They want you to actually tell people, you know, what your post is about. not just kind of bait them into clicking on it. Also, you shouldn't be too salesy on Facebook. I mean, if we go back to the motivations on why people share stuff on Facebook, you know, it's not because you're pushing and promoting and being really salesy to them, because that is definitely going to be a turnoff to a lot of people. So your posts on Facebook should be posts. They shouldn't be ads. I mean, Facebook ads are an entirely different monster that we're not really going to talk about today, but, you know, save your really salesy stuff for your Facebook ads. And your Facebook posts should actually be, you know, more geared toward your audience and the actual posts that they are, and not ads. Thirdly, don't explicitly ask people to like or share stuff. And by explicitly ask, I mean like those posts where it's like, oh, please like this picture, or, you know, share this product with all of your friends. That's a little bit too explicit, and Facebook doesn't like that as much. There are subtler ways to do this, and we'll actually show you some examples later of a way where you can ask people to take action without being like, oh my God, like my post. Next, you want to drop the hashtags on Facebook. Hashtags work on Twitter, more or less, but on Facebook, Facebook doesn't really, I mean, they don't tell you not to use them, but you know, it just kind of makes your posts look cluttered, and they don't work the same way as they work on Twitter. So, you know, drop the hashtags on Facebook. You really don't need them. And lastly, you don't want to reuse something on Facebook if it didn't work the first time. So here at Edgar, one of our major points, one of the major things we believe in, is to reuse and reshare and kind of repurpose all of your evergreen content. So like your blog posts that are always relevant, or, you know, stuff that you can share over and over. But having said that, we would never tell you to like reshare something on Facebook if it didn't do well the first time. So, you know, let's say you share like a photo or a video or something, and like nobody interacts with it. Like it just like is total dead silence, crickets. You probably don't want to share that again a couple weeks later, because if it didn't do well the first time, it's probably not going to do well the second time. So you might want to kind of reevaluate it and see how you might be able to post it differently another time. I mean, not saying you could never share that content again, but you probably want to, like, you know, rewrite the caption or figure out a different way to word things that might get people more interested. So just, you know, don't keep regurgitating stuff that's not working, because that just doesn't make sense in anything that you do. But now that we've done some don'ts, let's get back to some do's. And so these ones are actually from us here at Team Edgar, and these are just tips that, you know, we have found works, and some things that we would suggest that you do on Facebook. So first of all, do be consistent. And consistency in social media is another thing that, like, we're all about here at Edgar. But consistency can mean a couple of different things. So first of all, you know, you want to be consistent with how often you're posting on Facebook. And this is actually a thing that has been not necessarily proven, but, you know, people have done studies and definitely have found that if you're consistent, like let's say you post at the same time every day, and so your audience knows, okay, there's going to be a new post from this page at noon, and then they know to go and look for it if they don't see it in their newsfeed and they're like really, really interested in what you're posting. So you probably don't want to let days go by without a post, or like be really sporadic about it, and that's where like using a scheduling tool might help you out a lot, just in being consistent. And as far as how often you want to post on Facebook, it totally depends on your audience and your brand and all of that fun stuff. Like if you Google it, I mean, you'll find anything from like 1 to 4 times a day, because people will say, you know, oh, well, if my post is only reaching an average of like 5 or 6% of my audience, if I post 4 times a day, more people will see my stuff, because it's never like the same 5 or 6% that see a post. So that's something definitely to play around with, but at the very least, we would say be consistent and, you know, at least post like once a day on Facebook, just so people know that you're still there. And another thing to be consistent with is like the voice and the tone of your posts. So we also say to let your voice and your personality shine through on Facebook. And if you're just kind of like a one-man or a one-woman show, this is easy, you know, like just be yourself. Like you don't want to be just kind of like monotonous, robot-like. You want to actually let your personality shine through, because on social media, people tend to follow people that they can connect with. So that's a really easy way to just make sure that your audience can actually connect with you, is to let your personality come out. If you're a brand, though, like, don't think that you can't have a personality if you're a brand. And well, actually, I'll just use Edgar as an example. So, Edgar, we spent a lot of time before we launched Edgar kind of deciding like what his voice would be. And so even though we are a brand and it's not just one person posting on behalf of Edgar, like, we do have a pretty solid like personality for our tool. I mean, we refer to Edgar as he, like, as he's, like a sentient being. But so even if you're a brand, you want to kind of figure out what you want your voice to be, whether it's going to be kind of fun and playful or whether it's going to be a little bit more serious. And it obviously totally depends on the type of things you're posting, but you want to be consistent with that too. Some more do's from us. You want to make sure to actually engage with people who engage with you. And on Facebook, that's really as simple as, if somebody leaves a comment on a photo or a link or something that you share, reply to them. Like, make sure to let them know that you're actually listening, that you're not just, kind of letting things run and you don't really care if people see it or not. Like, make sure to let people know that you actually appreciate them engaging with your stuff. So you engage back with them. Next, you do want to figure out the best times to post for your audience, and this is actually probably one of the bigger do's that I want to like drill into your head, because on Facebook there are times that are a little bit better than others to post for your audience, and you can actually figure these times out using your insights. So if you head over to your insights, there's actually a section that's just called When Your Fans Are Online, and this is super useful. So if you look across the top, it shows you the days of the week, and you can see like what number of fans are actually online each day of the week. Now, this doesn't mean they're all going to see your stuff, obviously, but for example, during our week, it actually looks like the weekends are when a lot of our fans are online. So maybe we don't want to share really important stuff that we want people to see on like Monday or Tuesday because less people are online. It's not really a huge difference, but for some brands it could be a huge difference. So you want to pay attention to that, but you especially want to pay attention to the times, which is the second graph on this page, and that actually shows you the times when most of your audience is online. So you can see here that for us, for example, we probably aren't going to want to be posting anything from about 11 p.m. until maybe like 8 a.m. because a lot of our fans are in North America and they're sleeping. Or, they're on the other side of the world and they're not online. So you want to pay attention, because if we were to post something at like 6 a.m., there's less than 4,000 of our fans that tend to be online at 6 a.m. So we're definitely not going to get good reach at that time of day. On the other end of the spectrum, if we actually look at the little peaks in the graph, it actually looks like noon and about 5 p.m. are the two times when, a lot of our fans tend to be online. So going back to that consistency, maybe then we want to make sure that we're posting things around noon and around 5 each day, because that's kind of like the peak times when people are online. So if you do that and kind of build your posting strategy around when your fans are online, I think you'll find that that will really help, just help reach more people and have people actually interact with your stuff. And kind of going along with that, you also want to try a variety of different content to see what your audience responds to. So, you could be posting at the right time of day, but you also want to kind of change up what you're posting. And there's a good way to keep track of this as well in your insights. So in that same tab where you can see when your fans are online, there's actually another tab called Post Types. And this shows you what type of post does the best on Facebook. So you can see for us that photo posts tend to get more reach and more engagement than, let's say, status updates or just sharing straight up links. Now, of course, you're always going to have exceptions, right? You might post a link that does like ridiculously well and then others not do as well. But on average, like, looking at this can kind of tell you what types of things your audience is responding to the most. So, for you, this might be different. Maybe links do better for you, or maybe video does better for you. But you won't actually know unless you experiment and try different things. Try sharing a variety of different content. And this could even be, you know, maybe you're going to decide you're going to post twice a day on Facebook, and you might want to make one post a photo and then one post like a link or a status update. And your status updates could be any variety of things, like maybe you want to ask like a direct question to your audience, or share like an inspirational quote, or just like tell people what you're up to. And then just actually every couple of weeks check in on your insights and see what post types are doing the best. And then you can kind of change up your posting strategy. So if you find out that photos do like way, way, way better than anything else, then maybe you want to post more photos. Maybe you want to post 2 photos a day and like one other thing, rather than, you know, more of the latter. So that's definitely something that you should be doing if you're not already. Another thing that kind of ties into the trying different things is to get visual. So social media in general now has become such a visual medium. Like people, and maybe it's just because our attention spans are becoming so much shorter, but I also think that just, you know, photos tend to draw your attention a little bit more. But you can experiment with this as well. So you can experiment with posting single photos or photos in groups. So for example, you can upload like 3 or 4 different photos just to go with one status update, or just do one photo, or even uploading video. Facebook now allows you to upload video right into Facebook. So this is, you know, you're not sharing like a link to a YouTube video or anything. You're actually uploading the video right into Facebook. And I read some research a couple months ago that found that like the bigger your page, the better video might actually do for you. So if you have a lot of fans, you might want to experiment with adding some video in and just see how people respond. And again, you know, if it doesn't work, then that's fine. At least you tried it, and you know now that, you know, that's maybe just not something you want to put into your mix. But change it up and give it a try. Another thing we suggest that you do is to share what we call OPC, or other people's content. And this basically is exactly how it sounds. It's, you know, links or quotes or photos that were created by other people and not you. So they're not necessarily about your brand, but it's stuff that would entertain or interest your audience. Remember back to the reasons people share stuff. It's because they find it entertaining or valuable, or, you know, it says something about them. And when you're sharing other people's content on Facebook, you know, it doesn't have to be about your business all the time. And I think that's something that a lot of brands tend to forget. They kind of think like, oh, well, this is my Facebook page, so it has to always be about me. But that's not necessarily true. If you find stuff that's kind of tangentially related to your business, you can still share it, and it'll be relevant to your audience. But, you know, it'll kind of show them that, oh, hey, they're not just always sharing their own promotions or blog posts or whatever. So, you know, as an example, it's summertime. Let's say you have a pool business. You know, you don't always just have to be posting about your swimming pools. You could share stuff about, you know, tips for staying safe in the sun. Or you could share, maybe you find a post about swimming pools with like the best views in the world. And it's stuff that like your audience, it's relevant to them, but it's not just all about you. Or another example would be a webinar we did a couple months ago. I remember in the discussion section, somebody was asking, she had a business where they made gourmet popcorn. So it was like, you know, kind of like a brick and mortar, like they had a store, sold gourmet popcorn. And she was like, you know, do you guys think it would make sense on our Facebook page to maybe like share some movie reviews or like stuff about movies? And like everybody in the discussion was like, oh my God, yeah, like that's a great idea, because what goes together better than popcorn and movies, right? So it wasn't necessarily directly related to her business, but it was related enough that, you know, it wouldn't be weird to her audience to see that sort of thing on her Facebook page, and, you know, it might help her kind of connect more to more people, because of course lots of people love movies, so that just made sense. And one more tip to remember here is that when you're sharing other people's content, like if you see other pages in your niche or in your industry sharing something like a link or a photo, and they're all sharing the same thing like on the same day, you should try sharing it too. It's okay. Like you don't have to feel like, oh, well, you know, a bunch of other people just shared this, I'm not going to share it. because actually Facebook does take into account when people are sharing or looking at the same thing a lot, like around the same time. So if there's like a really interesting link that's related to your business and would make sense to share with your audience, and you see a bunch of other people sharing it at the same time, you should definitely try it too, because chances are it's going to reach more people, because like I said, Facebook does kind of pay attention in the background to that sort of thing. And kind of building off of that, this is something, a tip that I think a lot of people fail to think about, or a lot of people don't even know that you can do this, but there's a feature in your insights, in your Facebook insights, called pages to watch, and you should be using this to your advantage. So if you go into your insights and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a section that's just called pages to watch, and you can add as many pages to this as you like, and obviously you want to add pages that are kind of similar to yours. So in our case, like, you know, we've added a bunch of pages that post stuff about social media, because that's what we do at Edgar. And so basically it lets you see not only how many likes the other pages have, but also how many times that they're posting and the types of engagement that they're getting. So you can see here, you know, obviously Social Media Examiner is a much bigger page than Sprout Social, but you know, they're also posting a ton more, and their engagement is like ridiculously bigger than any of the other engagement on these other pages. So then what we might do, you know, your page will show up on here too. I think our page is like number 4 or 5 on our list of pages that we're watching. But, you know, so we might go through it and be like, oh my gosh, you know, Social Media Examiner is getting so much engagement. Let's go see what they're doing. So when you see a page getting a lot more engagement than the other ones in your pages to watch, you might want to first see how many times a week that they're posting, because that does make a difference, and then click over and see what kind of stuff they're doing, because they might be trying new stuff that you haven't even considered for your own page that's really working well. And, you know, definitely not saying you should completely just copy what everybody else is doing. You know, you don't want to share the exact same stuff all the time, but it might give you some new ideas of stuff you can try on your own page just to boost that engagement. So it's never a bad idea to kind of go spy on your competitors, so to speak, especially if what they're doing seems to be working really well. So that's kind of the end of our do's and don'ts. But again, I want to reiterate, the reasons people share content is more about them than you. So all of those kind of do's and don'ts that we talked about, you want to keep this in mind when you're also thinking about those things. So I have a few examples here of posts that kind of do this. So over on the left is a post from Edgar, and this is a blog post that we wrote about our first year running Edgar. But we didn't just say like, hey, read about Edgar's first year. We also added in this little bit, you know, and what you should know before you launch. So we tried to actually make it applicable to anybody looking at it who might also be launching a business this year. So it's not just all about us, but also about the audience. The Coca-Cola example up in the top right is actually really cool. So Coke, if you aren't familiar, has this kind of campaign going on now, Share a Coke, where they have like names or stuff like on their cans and bottles. So it'll be, you know, like share a Coke with your mom or share a Coke with Brandon. But they've also done this cool thing now where they've actually partnered up with Google. So if you go to their site, you can learn stuff about like your name or about names of your friends. And so like this update got shared a lot from Coke just because, you know, it's all about their audience. It's not really about them or the Share a Coke campaign. I mean, yes, their link is there. They're trying to drive you to their site, but they're actually making it more about the person reading this update than about their campaign. And the last example there from Finding the Universe, this is a travel page, and he's got like over 100,000 people following him, and he just posts a lot of really pretty travel photos. And, you know, that could kind of get old after a while, but he does this cool thing at least once a week, like, for example, this sunset post. So he does a Sunset Sunday thing where he posts a picture of a sunset that he saw somewhere, but then he encourages people to post pictures of their own of sunsets in the comments. So this is a good example of kind of, he's not explicitly telling people, you know, like or share this post, but he is asking people to like get involved and actually share their own photos. So that's kind of a better example of a way to ask people to interact and engage without being like really annoying about it. So, I thought that was a really good example as well. So now that we've gone through all of those and got some examples, we are going to get into the hands-on portion of the webinar. So we're going to bring in Tom, and Tom is the voice of Edgar on social media. So Tom takes care of a lot of our social stuff, and we're going to get into an interactive part. So basically what's going to happen here is we're going to show you a couple different examples of posts. So the first one that we show you is going to be a bad Facebook post. And so in the chat, in the webinar chat, we want you to tell us why you think it's a bad post. Like, what about it is good? Like, what does it go against in like the do's and don'ts that we just talked about? Some of them won't be like really, really obvious. Others will be. And then Tom will go ahead and tell you, like, we'll show you an example of the same post but a little bit better. So in a version that Facebook would like better or that will do better for you. So Tom, are you here?
I am here. Can everybody hear me all right?
I can hear you okay. So
right.
do you want to say anything in introduction, or should I just go right into the first example here?
Yeah, no, like Amanda said, we're going to just look at a few Facebook status updates that aren't as good as they could be. Ones that are doing something Facebook doesn't like and that Facebook users don't necessarily like either. So, we'll throw one up on the screen. We want to see you guys in the chat chime in with what you think each update is getting wrong. And yeah, if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's check out the first one.
All right, here is the first not so great Facebook post.
Yeah, so we've got an easy one first here. Cookie Monster says, click the like button if you like cookies. And sorry, but I am not doing a Cookie Monster voice for that. But this seems pretty harmless, right? So what's he doing wrong?
And for this section here, we know there's a little bit of a lag in between when you hear us and when we'll see your stuff pop up in the chat, but we're still here.
All right, I'm seeing some awesome answers in here. Yes, Cookie Monster is like baiting. That's what Facebook calls it whenever you're asking people to like your stuff. He's explicitly asking his followers to engage with his post because he wants his engagement rate to go up. Problem is, that's super low value content, and Facebook doesn't like it when you post stuff like this. So let's go ahead and see how he could have done that better. See, professional Cookie Monster has the right idea. He wants engagement too, but he's getting it by actually getting involved with his followers. He's asking a question that gets a discussion going, which is more rewarding for his fans, and it's the type of engagement that Facebook wants to see.
All right, awesome. Well, let's move on to our second example then. And this one is a little bit trickier, but it's still not too hard. So here is the bad example.
Yeah, this shouldn't be too tough. So what do you think? All right, again, seeing excellent answers in the chat. This is total clickbait. You look at that update and you have literally no idea what the article is about. Yeah, it's using a curiosity gap to make you want to click it, but whether or not the content will mean anything to you is a total gamble. Facebook hates this, and they can actually guess whether or not your post is clickbait even if nobody reports it. They can monitor how long the people who click your link spend at the destination before coming back to Facebook. So if it's only a few seconds, that can actually look bad for you. So Let's take a look at a better way of doing that same update. See, in this version, we've still got a curiosity gap that'll make people want to click, but it's not at the expense of giving them enough context to make an informed decision about whether or not this content is actually relevant to their interests. They know what sort of article the post links to before they click it, so you might not get as many clicks, but they're going to be much more valuable clicks because people are probably going to stay in the article longer. So let's move on to one that's going to be a little bit trickier.
All right, here's bad example number 3.
So before anyone thinks that we're being mean and picking on Planet Fitness, I'm going to clarify that this is a fake status update that we cooked up here in the lab, okay? Planet Fitness did not actually post this. But just from looking at this fake update, can you tell what they are doing wrong? What is wrong with this post? All right, awesome. I'm seeing excellent answers. This post is indeed too salesy, but here's how they could have done it better. And actually, this one here is a real update from Planet Fitness. Now, see where it says sponsored? That's because this version is an advertisement. Planet Fitness paid for this to show up in someone's feed. It has the same copy, the same image, the same everything as the other update pretty much. But the difference is that this is a paid ad, and that comes with a different set of expectations for Facebook and its users. Kind of like how you have TV shows, but you also have TV commercials. Facebook doesn't want you to use free status updates for making sales. They want you to buy ads for that. And while Facebook users don't necessarily mind seeing ads in their newsfeed, they don't want the pages that they've liked to be selling to them all the time. That doesn't mean you can't promote yourself at all via status updates, but definitely tread carefully when you do, and don't just treat Facebook like a place for free advertising, because it's not. All right, we're going to move on to the last one, and this is by far the trickiest, so let's see if anyone can guess it.
All right, here's update number 4.
All right, so here we are sharing a link to a news story, and so far nothing seems too out of place, right? It's not too clickbaity or anything, but there is a problem here. Can anyone guess what it is? Oh, all right. Good eyes on you people. I'm so happy. Yes, this is a pretty suspicious looking news story. There's a suspicious little ellipsis in that quote. Let's take a look at a better version and we'll get the whole story. Oh, look at that. Our vice president was only declaring a thumb war. Well, that's a lot less scary, right? See, when you deliberately mislead people, like that first update does, it can be a lot easier to get clicks. After all, that story from the first update sounds like pretty serious stuff. But deliberately misleading people is also pretty uncool, and they can actually report you for it too. If Facebook gets reports like that and they decide that you're being too misleading with updates like this one, it can restrict your reach. So you're better off not fudging the truth, ever. All right, gang, that about does it for our play along segment. So I'm just going to kick it on back to Amanda. But thank you for participating in that, everyone. And don't forget, stick around to the end here. We're going to have time for questions and discussion.
All right, thank you so much, Tom. That was really cool, and I hope that it helps you guys kind of get a better idea for like exactly this type of stuff that we're talking about. Because obviously it's one thing to see like, bullet points on a list in a webinar, but to actually like see the side-by-side examples of status updates, I hope that that was really helpful for you. I thought it was pretty cool, and thanks to Tom for whipping some of those up for us. So we're just going to kind of wrap up some of the stuff that we talked about here. So some of those do's and don'ts on Facebook. So first and foremost, like we've kind of been reiterating the entire time, you want to keep your audience in mind when you're creating your content for Facebook. So you want to keep in mind the sort of stuff that they'd be interested in. You want to keep in mind the fact that they're only going to share stuff if they actually can connect to it, and it's more about them and less about you trying to like sell them something or tell them something. Secondly, don't be annoying, and this kind of sums up a lot. But, a lot of those do's and don'ts just center around just kind of like annoying people into trying to get them to engage with your content. So some of the examples that Tom gave were great, like, link baiting and click baiting and all that sort of stuff that in the end just really annoys people when they see it over and over and over again. So don't annoy your audience. Next, you want to experiment and try new things. We told you should try different types of content and use your insights to find out what actually works. And, it's okay if stuff doesn't work because, when you find out what works, do more of that and then just get rid of what doesn't. And that's really, kind of the meat of when you're creating Facebook content. You don't want to just kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again. You want to experiment and then actually keep track of what's working and what doesn't. It does mean that you put a little bit more effort into what you're doing on Facebook, but ideally that effort will turn into more engagement and your audience actually enjoying your Facebook page and your posts more. So now that we've kind of gone through all that, we do want to have some discussion. So I'm actually going to just minimize this screen of mine so that I can also see what you guys are saying in the chat. But basically, we're curious to know what kind of tactics you've tried on Facebook and like what has worked really well, or maybe even stuff that hasn't worked well for you. Tell us about it, and we'll kind of chat about it a little bit. And also, if you have any questions, like for us, for me, or for Tom, feel free to throw those in the chat as well, and we'll just spend the next like 10 or 15 minutes just kind of chatting it up. So like I said, don't mind that I just minimize. That's just so I can hop over into the chat and see what you guys are looking at. Let's see. Oh, Margarita actually has a question that is related to Edgar, which is awesome. So she says, if I'm using Edgar, some posts get repeated. And yes, that's true. Would this be considered annoying on Facebook? And I think the answer to that, it really depends. So again, if it's content that did well for you the first time that it posted, it's fine to use it again. But on Facebook, you probably don't want to be repeating things more than maybe like once every couple of months. Because yeah, if you're like repeating the same thing like every single week or every day, that is going to get really annoying on the off chance that like somebody sees it multiple times in a row. So we would say, when you're using Edgar to reshare things to Facebook, just make sure you leave a good length of time in between. Let's see. Danielle has a question about the pages to watch, and she's asking what factors are considered when you're ranking them. Facebook does that itself, so you don't actually get to rank the pages, and a lot of times it's just based on like the number of likes and stuff. Although I believe you can filter it in your insights to actually rank them based on like engagement or based on some of the other factors that are listed there. But when you add the pages, Facebook just kind of like auto ranks them for you, and then you can kind of play around and look at them that way. But your page is always ranked in there as well. Man, there's so many questions in here. I will definitely try to get to some of them. Somebody's asking if you can download this PowerPoint. Well, actually, you'll get a replay link in your email, so you can actually watch it again. But if you do want the slides, you can also just send an email to us, support@meetedgar.com, and we can definitely get you the slides, like if you just want to have those for yourself as well. Um, oh my goodness. Oh, Adana has a good discussion topic here. So she's talking about Facebook lets you add sticky posts, or you can like pin a post to the top of your Facebook page. So she said, adding sticky posts that actually open the floor to conversation, and that's a really good idea. Especially if there's like one specific topic or something that your page is really all about, and you make a post and you pin it to the top of your page. That is definitely a good way to make sure that people actually see it. Let's see. Stella's asking, what about posting several times a day, even if it means my reach goes way down? Well, it definitely depends, Stella, on your page and like what your overall goal is. You might find that yes, if you only post once a day, your reach might be slightly larger than if you post like 4 times a day. But let's say, for example, we'll just say, okay, if you post once a day, your reach is like 500 people. But for the post, if you post 4 times a day, maybe each post only gets like 200 reach. But if you add that all up, you're actually reaching 800 people a day then making 4 posts than just 1. So it really depends on what your tactics are. And again, we would tell you to try it out, do some experimentation and see what works better. But just keep in mind that the same people aren't necessarily seeing all of your posts. So the 200 people that see one post might not see the second post you make. So yeah, sometimes posting more frequently, you might just reach different segments of your audience doing that way. Sarah has a good question here. She said that she liked the do's that were discussed, but she says, what do you do for posts that are regarding your product, or would you recommend it always be an ad? That is a good question, and I think it just depends on what kind of like wording and syntax and stuff you want to use. So like in Tom's example of that Planet Fitness ad, it was very, very salesy. So if you want it to be really salesy, chances are you might want to actually just make it an ad rather than a post. But if you do want to just use free posts, you can get creative about it. Like maybe you can still link to your site. But let's say that you're selling I don't know, we'll just say it's a book, right? Because that's an easy one. So let's say that you're selling a book, and you still can link to like your sales page or the book on Amazon or whatever, but maybe in your caption, instead of making it really salesy, like, hey, buy this book, you might want to actually like ask people a question, like, have you ever, and then insert something that relates to the topic of your book. Or if it's a product, so let's say maybe it's like, I don't know, a pair of socks, like a particular pair of socks. Again, it's okay if you link to the sales page where people can buy the socks, but in the caption, then you might want to say, what do you do when your feet are cold? Or again, you want to make it more about the person reading the post than selling the product. But it doesn't mean that you can't have like the product in the post. You just don't want to make it so salesy that it's obviously an ad. Let's see. Let's find some other questions in here. Oh, Nikki has a good discussion topic. She says that people like to talk about themselves, and yes, that's definitely true. So in posts where I ask people to share something that works or doesn't work for them and always works well. Yeah, so there's a great example of just a discussion post. So asking people direct questions like, about a certain topic, like what do you do or what do you don't do, or like what we're doing right here, right? We just asked you, tell us some of the things that you do on Facebook that works or doesn't work, and a lot of you are chiming in. So yes, like Nikki said, people love to talk about themselves on social media. I mean, that's why they're on social media. So if you can kind of tie into that in what you're posting or asking, that's always a really good idea. Let's see. I have a couple of questions about how to get an active following on Facebook. That is good, but that answer would require a lot more. Basically, it's just about like making sure that people know about it and kind of getting yourself out there and interacting with other people on social networks. We are going to do a webinar, I think next month, about like getting more followers in organic ways on social media. So maybe check that out. Let's see. So many good questions in here. See what else. Oh, Matt has a good question that was just asked here. He's asking, what main metric do you look at to know what's working? Well, on Facebook, I guess the whole engagement metric really is kind of the best way to decide what's working or what's not on Facebook. Although, you know, it could really depend on what your Facebook strategy is. So if you are more focused on ads than on creating content, then your metric might actually be, okay, how much money are we actually making from our Facebook ads? But for actual just content that you're posting on Facebook, I would definitely look at those engagement numbers. So on the slide where we talked about using your insights to kind of see what works and what doesn't, and I'll just kind of click on it here, you know, you're able to actually see what kind of engagement you got. So you can see not only the reach of your post, but you can see, you know, how many post clicks it got. That's actually a really good metric because you can see how many people clicked on it. And also the likes, comments, and shares, because obviously Facebook uses that metric to decide how many people it's going to show your stuff to. So I would say the engagement metric is probably the one you want to pay the most attention to when you're in your insights, and then kind of tweak things from there. Let's see, what else do we have in here? There's some questions about video on Facebook. So yes, you are able to just upload a video directly into Facebook, and then it's basically hosted on Facebook, and you can do that for free. So you don't necessarily have to upload something to YouTube and then share the YouTube link. You can just upload your video right into Facebook, and Facebook actually prefers you to do it that way because then, you know, it's hosted on their platform, and then when you scroll through the news feed, that's where you see those videos that start playing automatically, like when you're scrolling through your news feed. Those are ones that get directly uploaded to Facebook. So as you scroll past them, they like just start playing. Let's see what else. This discussion in chat has been amazing, and I'm really excited about it. Yeah, some people are asking a little bit about just Facebook ads in general, which, like I said, we didn't get into in this webinar because that's completely different from your content. But yeah, you do have to have a Facebook. Well, I think you can promote stuff like on a personal page, but it definitely makes sense to have a business page on Facebook if you want to use ads on Facebook. But there's so many different ways to do it. Yeah, I'm not going to get into that here because I don't even know enough about Facebook ads to really give like sound advice on what you should do there. Oh, Linda just had a good question, and this is one that we get a ton at Edgar, and it's actually why we like put this webinar together. But she's asking, does Facebook give preferential treatment to posting directly on Facebook as opposed to using a tool? And obviously, since our tool posts to Facebook, you know, we get that question a lot at Edgar, and the answer is that there's no proof that Facebook will punish you if you use something like Edgar or Hootsuite or Buffer or anything like that to post to Facebook. A lot of times people will say, you know, oh, well, I was posting automatically using Buffer or whatever, and my reach went way down. And the thing is that you can't just say, oh, okay, well, that was clearly because you were using Buffer. You actually need to look at the content. Like, is the content something you normally would post to Facebook, or is it more of like a Twitter-style post that just doesn't really work on Facebook? So that's really where the idea for this webinar came from, is just to kind of tell you that there's so many different factors going into like what gets shared and what gets a lot of reach on Facebook that you really need to just try different things and see what works. So other people who have used tools, so other people who use Edgar, have said that since it's helped them become really consistent with their posting, that their stuff actually gets more reach than when they were just posting kind of directly to Facebook sporadically, throughout the week. So it depends on the situation, but I think if you're creating good content, it doesn't actually matter how you're posting it. Like, Facebook can recognize when you're actually posting stuff that your audience wants to read. Let's see. A good question here from Adana, saying one thing I've started doing to extend my page's reach is to share posts to my personal profile. Is that the only way to bypass the Facebook algorithm that keeps posts from pages showing up on people's news feeds? Yeah, unfortunately, Facebook's algorithm these days, it does obviously focus a lot on engagement, and you sharing something from your page to elsewhere obviously is seen as engagement. But as well, Facebook kind of wants brands and businesses to pay for Facebook ads. I mean, that's kind of the sad truth of it, is that they are trying to turn it into more of a pay-to-play type of platform for businesses. But again, if you are creating really, really engaging content that your audience can kind of relate to, it snowballs over time. So it's not going to be like immediate. Like, you can't just start posting, really engaging stuff tomorrow and expect your reach to skyrocket. It kind of happens over time, but I think that Facebook does see that. So if they see that your audience is starting to interact more and get more engaged, then I think that's when your reach starts to climb a little bit. So is there a way around their algorithm? If there is, we don't really know it because they keep so much to themselves. So, what we've shared here today is basically everything we know to try and make sure that you get the most out of each update that you send out there. Stephen, yes, you'll get a replay link if you missed any of this, so don't worry. Yeah, and to follow up on that question before about, using a third-party tool to post, Lash just shared here, said that I used to schedule using Hootsuite and my reach was really low, so then I started scheduling directly on Facebook and the reach was just the same. So yeah, sometimes it doesn't matter how you're sharing stuff to Facebook. It really matters. The content really is the key. And sometimes you have to play around with it to find out what sort of content works. It's unfortunately not like a really easy formula to give you. Let's see, I think we'll just go through a couple more questions or a little bit more discussion and then kind of wrap it up. Becky has a good tip here. So when you have like products and services, she's saying that she only features her products and services one day per week on Facebook. So that might be a good rule, if you're just kind of promoting once a week and then everything else is kind of non-salesy. That's actually a really good idea. Maybe just pick like a couple times a week where you're going to share promotional stuff, and then the rest of it just make it different. And that's a good way to mix things up as far as your content goes. Let's see. Corey's asking about future webinars and if you'll get an email. Yes, we will definitely be promoting all of them on social media. So we're actually going to do one at the end of this month that's about Twitter content. So it's kind of going to be the same format, but for Twitter instead of Facebook. And then next month we're looking at doing one about just organic ways to get more followers on social media. And we definitely will be promoting all of those and as well as all future webinars. So if you found out about this one, chances are you will hear about the next ones as well. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, just lots of comments, and I do apologize if we didn't get to all of your questions, but there's been a lot. There's some Edgar-related questions in here as well. And of course, if you do have Edgar-related questions that we didn't get to in the webinar, feel free to shoot us an email, support@meetedgar.com, and we can answer any specific Edgar questions there for you. Yeah, somebody else saying that they tend to share stuff from their business page to personal pages and other things. Brooke, your pages to watch. Let me see if I can, or maybe Tom, if Tom remembers where exactly that is in your insights, feel free to drop that in the chat, Tom. But otherwise, I'm going to pop in and check exactly where that is. I'm pretty sure it's just on the the very first insight screen that you have. Yeah, so just on the overview in your insights, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, that's where you'll find your pages to watch. And there won't be any in there if you haven't set it up. So there'll just be a little strip where you can add pages to watch. So that's where you do that, just in the overview section of your insights. Yeah, so again, thank you so much for joining us on the webinar today. As Christina just posted via the Team Edgar account, if you do want to make sure that you hear about our future Hangouts and stuff like that, you can sign up for our newsletter, and feel free to send any Edgar-related questions to us at support@meetedgar.com. I really hope you guys enjoyed the webinar. We really enjoyed putting it together and presenting it today. And yeah, thank you again so much, and have a great rest of your Thursday and a great rest of the week. Bye.